Hi, GDQ friends. My name is Yellowkillerbee, and I am submitting Mickey Mania for Super Nintendo. This game did get played a while ago. I think it was SGDQ 2015, which was my first SGDQ, but a lot has changed since then. One of the main things about this platformer is these little warps, like this one that is coming up here. And what happens is that when there's too many sprites on the screen, the game gets overloaded, and it's actually designed as part of the game to have a crash handler that will send you to the next level. It actually pops up a little screen that flashes forward, backward, and if you select the right one, then you get to go to the next level. And so that was the first warp. When I ran this game, there were 3, and now there are a lot more and more being found every day. Actually, in the last 3 months, I think, it's just been really crazy how many new tricks have been found in this game. Also, one of the main differences is that this is the Japanese version, which has some extra tricks as well. So we're just killing Pete here. We did a little setup earlier that changed the cycle of these boxes. A lot of this game is a lot to do with cycles, which makes it really interesting but also challenging because if you miss a cycle, you can lose a lot of time. This boss is pretty much the same as in the English version, except for that little hitch at the beginning there. And the thing about that is that it really messes up your timing. I used to run this on the English version, and then you switch over to the Japanese version, and there's just these tiny little changes that really mess everything up when you're so used to having the muscle memory to do one thing, and then all of a sudden you just have to change it ever so slightly. So falling down there, that avoids taking damage by that bat, so you don't have to stop completely. You can keep your momentum going forward. This next room coming up has the first zip. Now the zip is kind of like what people do in Mega Man, where they, go forward off the screen. This is done by grabbing a rope and then pressing jump again on the same frame that you grab the rope. So it's a 1 frame trick. You do it 3 times during the run. The nice thing about a marathon is you can see, like on that one, I tried it once and then it didn't work and I could try it again. So it is marathon safe. Here's the second warp right there. That is the easiest one to get. You just throw a marble and then you're good. And then here's another zip coming up right away. This is a pretty packed run, especially at the beginning, which is kind of nice because there's a lot going on. Okay, so I got it first try. That was really great. 1 frame trick is hard to do, but it's not impossible to get it down where you can get it first try fairly consistently, but it is very difficult. But if you miss it, then you can just jump off the rope and just keep trying it again until you get it. So even in a marathon environment, it's not like the end of the world, and I think it's a really cool trick to show off. So even if it takes a few tries, or you could just keep going until you could show it off. Obviously, it's more impressive if you get it right away, but in a marathon setting, who knows? You might get it right away, you might not. But so yeah, this is the elevator ride. All of these skeletons are spooky and they might scare you, but they probably won't hit you because their bone pattern is the same every time. When playing this casually, it looks really, really difficult to dodge, but it's really not because you just have to know where to stand and know where to duck. They will be different depending on which way they're facing, but as soon as you know that, then it's pretty easy. We've got the infamous Mickey makes a chemical bomb sequence with also the color matching that doesn't make any sense. So that's green and red make yellow. And then we're going to add, let me see, some blue, and that makes purple. So yeah, total sense. But when you're mixing chemicals, it doesn't have to make sense. So basically what we're doing is mixing the chemicals, and then you have to stand on this button to heat them up, and then it blows up this locked door. And what we're doing here is we're trying to rescue Pluto from the mad scientist. He has a master plan, which is Duck plus Pluto divided by Saw. And when I kind of looked into the lore behind this, is that he was planning to put the duck's head on Pluto's body to make a dog that would lay eggs, or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense, but he is a mad scientist, so it doesn't really need to make sense. So that fight has probably the most RNG of the whole game. Just those test tubes going everywhere are random, but you're pretty much tanking the damage and refilling your health, so it doesn't really matter too much. All right, this level has the next warp that is coming up. This is one of the new ones that was just found, and it's kind of tricky. One of the reasons I think it wasn't found, some of these are Japanese only, but some of them did work on the English one, and they just weren't found. Like this one is very timing specific. Like the whole level is cycles of this moose running through, and without the moose on the screen, you can't get enough sprites to trigger the warp. So you have to like stand in this very specific spot and then have the rock fall and the moose run all at the same time. Now there is a chance for soft locked here, but you can do a backup because the game has a built-in level selector, so you can just go back and move on to the next level. It doesn't happen too often, but you know, marathon luck could happen. You never know. You always hope for no soft locks. This is pretty much an auto scroller. You can go faster by collecting apples, but once you get to a certain point, you really can't get any more speed from more apples. And so just the main thing is just making sure that you don't get slowed down by accidentally jumping in any water anywhere. But it's kind of a nice break because the next level is pretty technical and difficult. The last level you had to worry about getting that warp, and so it's almost like you get a nice little rest in there. So this next level is Lonesome Ghost. Actually, all the levels are based on early movies that Mickey was in. So that's why the levels don't really seem to have any cohesion. What you're doing is usually you save yourself. You save the Mickey from the movie at the end of every level, except for Mad Doctor, you save Pluto. And one of the things that I actually really like about the Japanese version is that Pluto shows up a lot more often. You can see him on the raft, and then he'll show up in the next level one extra time too. And I don't know why that is. Like the Japanese version came out after the English version, which maybe that's why they added him in. But it's also a lot more broken. So I don't know. Like maybe they were trying to fix things and then they broke more things because the zips showed up. So in this level, there's these stairs that turn into ramps. They're like these trick stairways. But on some of them, if you jump on certain stairs, you can actually get up to the top, and that's not intended. Like every ramp is supposed to turn in, or every stairway is supposed to turn into a ramp. But if you jump on certain steps, you can actually prevent that on some of them and get up to the top and not slide down to the bottom, which is really nice. And then coming up here, there's these little up and down platforms, and they're not too difficult, except at the end you can do like an earlier cycle, but it's like a fairly tighter sequence of jumps. As you can see there, I was just a little bit too slow. You can't be too fast though either, because then the platforms won't be completely up. So it's like you can't go too fast or you can't go too slow either. So this level has the third zip in it, and this one is actually the most fun in my opinion. I mean, the other two are great, but this one has like a really great ending to the zip, and it saves a whole ton of time and a whole ton of life, because this is one of the sections that casually is pretty bad. For the speed run originally, we just tanked a bunch of damage, like we'd save up a bunch of life and then try to, you know, just go through everything quickly. But now we can do this zip, and it has to be done very specifically so you get enough height. So you have to be at the top of your jump. It's a one frame trick, and then you kind of get stuck in the bottom of the stairs there, and then you just wiggle yourself free, and then you're fine. So it skips a whole section where you have to push this table and duck underneath these ghosts that are throwing their hats at you. And so that's one of my favorites. It's my favorite because it's cool, but then also because it skips a section that nobody really liked, nobody wanted to do. So that's also a plus. All right, so this next level, we're moving on to Mickey and the Beanstalk. Right off the bat, there's a skip that like skips an entire level, which is a fairly long level, which in some ways is kind of a bummer because this had a kind of cool trick in the level. But I'm also going to be submitting Warpless, and that would have the option of including more of the levels because it won't have any warps, but it'll still have the zips. In fact, it has one extra zip, which is kind of nice. So this level has yet another warp on it, and all of these ones are all new, just been discovered in the last few months. But yeah, it all has to do with see everything that's going on the screen. It's just, it overloads it when there's so many, I think those are spider babies falling down. And then usually it has to do with you getting injured so that your character flashes and then throwing a marble just, to add just a little bit more sprites on the screen. So this next level is still one of my favorite levels because it's very straightforward and you get to just press forward the whole time, which is kind of like what you want as a speedrunner. You want to go fast. You want to have a level that's very smooth and kind of has a flow to it, which I think describes this level to a T. Plus, this movie was one I actually watched as a kid. I think the first one on that's referenced in this game that I actually watched as a child, and it wasn't bad. It was a pretty good movie. So, this is, of course, the infamous Giant's Table scene with the big jello there that you're going to jump on. So yeah, so then after this level is the final level, and that's Prince and the Pauper. And that one has uh, another new zip that is found that skips a whole lot of time. So yeah, basically this game went from having a world record of just over 20, like we were like maybe sub 20 is possible, maybe we had like a high 20 world record, and then all of this showed up, and now the world record at this current time is a low 17. It's like a 1704, I think. So yeah, it's definitely just kind of been destroyed very recently. So, but it's exciting because there could be more warps yet to be found. So these chandeliers don't pay attention to physics, and so there's a trick to them, but every so often it just doesn't work, and then you fall off, so it's a little bit stressful. And then this library sequence has some very precise platforming. If you throw marbles at the right time, you can sometimes go through some of these enemies without taking damage. And the main thing is just to get through without losing too much health, because health is still a big factor in this game, health management. With a lot of the warps, it's changed a lot, and I feel like it's still not as optimized as it possibly could be, just because the route keeps changing with every new warp that's found, and there could be times that we could probably do health management more, but I think that's just going to continue to grow. In fact, I've been planning to make a tutorial of this game for forever, and I just still have not done it because there's just new things all the time, and so as soon as I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this tutorial, and then something new gets found and it would be out of date almost immediately. So maybe someday. Okay, this is duck jump, and this is a trick that's been around, but a new setup got found for it that makes it way, way easier. And so you just hold down jump, and then you jump in a specific sequence, doing a full jump every time, and it just lines your timing up perfect so you can get a boost off of that inflatable duck. And then this is the second to last warp, one of the last newest ones. And there was a couple different setups for it, and then finally they're still working on it, but that one is much more consistent than any one that we've found so far. And that one's tough because it's right close to the end, and for a while it wasn't very consistent, so you could have a good run and then you get to the end and heartbreak. So this section is you can like it's not really an auto scroller because it has these barrels. So, and then of course your jump patterns on the stairs can save you a tiny bit of time or not, but this has a lot to do with your health. If you come in here with full health, you can save a decent amount of time by not having to jump over the barrels. Now, if you were 100% confident, you could use every single one of your health, and the health is actually in the upper left there. It's the glove that's got 2 fingers on it right now, and so that means he has 2 health. And I usually save 1, and in a marathon setting I would definitely save 1, but you can see I took damage there, and it's just because I had 2 health and I only need 1. If I was really close to a PB and I needed to save all the time I could, I probably go into this last part with 0 health, because it still can be done with 0 health. There's one more warp, but it's just easier to pull off if you have that extra health and can take a little bit of damage here. So this is an auto scroller. I have tried going above the screen, and the platforms just don't even load until they show up on the screen. So even though it's possible to climb faster than the screen is climbing, there's nowhere to go. So You can't go up any faster. Also, these enemies all die with 1 marble, which is the only place in the game they do that. And yeah, I didn't know that as a kid because I never tried shooting them. Alright, so there is the last warp. And now on to the Peat Fight. So the Peat Fight is an auto-scroller because as it is with so many Disney villains, you have to wait for them to like provide you with things to kill them with. In this case, he's going to be dropping spikes for him to jump on. Always look before you leap, kids. That's the lesson here. And so, yeah, so he will jump over on the spikes, but you have to wait for them to come down. And so it's all cycle based. It's actually a really long fight. The game, I mean, now it's like a 17 and change speed run, and this fight is 2 minutes long. And so, like we used to say, oh, it's 10% of the run. Well, now it's more than 10% of the run because this fight has not gotten any shorter, and the speed run keeps getting shorter. So yeah, that's kind of one of the running jokes in the community is, um, that the Peat Fight skip will come at some point. Although I don't personally think it will happen because there's just never that much going on in this room. But that would be that would be quite the day if we found the Peat Fight skip because it would shave an automatic 2 minutes off this game just like that. So yeah, so basically you have to hit him 5 times in the first cycle, 6 times in the second cycle. And really, there's a couple things that can go wrong. There's ninja stars coming from the ceiling. For a casual player, those are very, very difficult to dodge. For someone who's played this a lot, it's really not that big of a deal. The more real danger is actually missing the switches because the hitboxes are kind of weird. If you notice that Mickey is jumping not so much across the switch as like straight up into it and then straight down. And the reason for that is it just seems like the hitbox works better that way. And especially in this run where I was like headed towards a PB, I knew that I didn't want to miss any of the switches, and so I was being extra careful to try to jump straight up into them and then straight back down so I wasn't missing their finicky hitboxes. Because, yeah, hitboxes in this game can be a little weird sometimes, and you think you have them down, and then you totally don't. So yeah, that's Mickey Mania. It's the estimate would probably be about 20 minutes, which isn't too bad. As you can see, a lot has changed. It's a different version than the one that was run 2.5 years ago. I don't think it's ever been in an AGDQ. So yeah, I would really love it if you'd consider having this game. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.